Hi, welcome to Open Hand Farm. We have a class for you today. Wait, I'm not at Open Hand Farm. I'm here with Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael, gas gardener.
Well, we do have a class today though, but Michael's kind of leading that and I'm just here for support, I guess. And if anybody has questions that maybe I can answer, but he knows it all. So what is the class about today, Michael?
So today we're going to be talking about some different ways to plant in any space. So I've talked to a lot of people, they give me excuses as to why they don't garden, they don't get to enjoy that connection to the ground. And so I want to encourage people who maybe feel that way on ways that they can exploit their space, even if it's a tiny amount of space or a lot of space, the best way that they can use that space to have flowers or food or whatever it is that they want.
Perfect. All right. Well, come along with us as we have an endeavor to have this class. We do have rain possibilities, so we're going to see what happens. But come along.
We're talking about soil. So we're talking about some of the essentials. I enjoy foodscaping or flowers. I enjoy growing things that are useful to me, growing things that I'll enjoy. It helps me to find joy in the harvest, so to speak. And so we're talking about soil. So if we want to have successful plants, we need to make sure that our soil is useful. And I gave the example of my wife. I gave her instructions on a plant that came in the mail. I told her to dig a hole, or I dug the hole. I had the dirt setting next to the hole, and I instructed her that when these plants came, that she was supposed to put the plants in the hole and then cover them with soil. And she did exactly what I said, and the plants didn't do very well. And I was explaining why. The reason why is because we need to make sure the soil is in intimate contact with the roots. And in this case, the soil wasn't pressed down, the air pockets weren't removed from the soil. And so even though she watered, the plants weren't able to access sufficient water to keep themselves alive. And so the tree appears to have died. I think I might be able to save it though, because I was able to trim off some of the dead tissue, and I was able to discover that some of the tissue is living. Ooh. It just dropped its leaves. So I think what'll happen is it's in shock right now, and eventually it should emerge from shock. So I don't think it's a loss, but it probably is going to put the tree behind a year. So normally I would expect that tree to be producing 3 to 4 years. It's probably going to be 4 to 5 years. So you probably basically just lost a year. So it's not a total loss, so not a big deal. So we're talking about soil, and assuming that we have a plant living in said soil, that plant is going to be producing what we call exudates, which is a weird thing to think about, but plants will dump waste products, excess products into the soil. And this is actually an area of research right now. They're realizing that some plants are really good companions for other plants, and the question is why? Why does this plant do so well with this plant? Is it because it simply just enjoys having a friend, or is there something else that's happening maybe under the soil? And so they've been doing research on what is happening. And so there's this product they call exudates. So if a plant produces, it's really, really good at producing sugar, but maybe it's not so good at producing some other nutrient. And so what'll happen is that plant will dump its excess sugar into the soil. And that encourages something else to live in the soil. It's targeting maybe a certain type of bacteria, a certain type of fungus. And what happens is they feed that bacteria or that fungus in the soil, and then that bacteria or fungus in the soil is going to then live, run its life cycle, and then die. And when it dies, it's going to leave behind some other product that the plant is going to be able to bring up out of the soil and say, thank you very much for your life. Now I'm going to take your nutrients and nourish myself with that nutrient. So even though it's dumping excess sugar into the soil, it's able to get these other products from the soil from having a living root. So the point is you might have noticed areas that have no plants, because they just completely demolish an area, they struggle having plants. But areas that maybe are unkept or whatever, they'll just go crazy with all these weeds and plants and vegetation, and you're just like, why is that area so good at growing vegetation? And the reason why is what I just explained. When you have soil that's been nurtured, when you have soil that has a living root, when you have soil that has organic material such as mulch, anything like that is going to be feeding the soil, it's going to be encouraging worms and other types of microbial life to live, and those types of life are going to produce, through their life cycle, through their death, they're going to be producing nutrients that cause plants to thrive. And so by being aware of those different types of microclimates that are created either accidentally or intentionally in your yard, you can exploit those and maximize those. And so that's something that I've been experimenting with in my quote unquote chaos gardening, is I'll just kind of stick plants everywhere, and then I'll notice, oh wow, this elderberry did really well right here, but did terrible over here. Why is that? And then I'll go and investigate. Oh, this area has a bunch of mulch and it's surrounded by clover. This area over here is just crammed and compacted, and I run over it with the car sometimes. It doesn't seem to do very well, you know? Another good thing that I've noticed about mulch, you put down mulch and you produce, through the breakdown, through the transition between soil and mulch, you'll have the humus. So the breakdown of organic material produces soil, so to speak. Worms love that. And if worms love it, they're gonna dig through it. And if they dig through it, they're poking holes. And if they're poking holes when it rains, we know what's gonna happen, right? We're gonna have infiltration of water, and it's gonna be easier for roots of plants to go through that soil. So things like mulch invite worms, and worms are gonna invite life. So that's one of the reasons if you go around my property, you'll see mulch everywhere. It was because when we first moved here, there was areas that people drove cars on or parked cars on or crammed the soil down, and so stuff didn't grow very well. So by putting mulch down in those areas, suddenly it's becoming extremely fertile. I believe mostly because it's inviting worms to just punch holes in the soil, especially night crawlers, because night crawlers will go down 15, 20 feet, and so it's just inviting a whole bunch of good things to happen. So soil, feed it, living root, mulch, in a nutshell, your soil is going to be your starting point. We can go outside now. Let's go outside. Little tree stumps over here. So if you look over here, I have 3 tall trees. The 2 on the sides are Bradford pears. The one in the middle is a crabapple. So those were the same height. Those stumps over here were the same height. And what I decided to do is I decided to chop off the tops. And then I reached out to a friend, Penny, and she happened to have some pear trees. But she has good pear trees. I think Bradford and Anjou and an Asian pear. And so if you'll come down this way, I'll show you. And I did what's called bark grafting. I have that on videos on my channel if you look at the Chaos Gardener on YouTube. And I give simple instructions on how to do this. This one's actually not very healthy, so I don't know if it's the best example, but might as well be honest. Ooh, right here's a wheel bug. This is an assassin bug. If there's anything on there like aphids or beetles, they'll puncture them with a little proboscis and they'll suck all the juices out of them.
Where is he?
Right here. And they're carnivores.
Oh, I see him.
Those bites
It feels like a bee sting if it pokes you. An example of grafting. So these are bark grafted. So like I said, Penny gave me some cuttings from her trees, and then I put those cuttings in cold storage, and when the time was right, I inserted those cuttings into the trunks to encourage them to grow. And I think this one's a Bartlett, and it's struggling a little bit, and mostly because of this, which I needed to take care of.
Oh, yeah.
So a little bit of aphids going on here. See the ants there?
Yeah.
The ants actually farm them like cows. So what'll happen is if there's no aphids, these ants will pick up an aphid and they'll bring it over to a nice succulent leaf, and then they'll get sap. And what the bees do is the bees go and pester them a little bit, and it stresses the aphids and causes them to secrete a juice that's called honeydew, and then the ants eat it. So they basically are enslaved by the ants. So anyway, like I said, grow what you'll eat, grow what makes you happy, grow what you like, grow what makes you find joy in your food. For me, Bradford pears didn't do it for me. But I think Bartlett's and Anjou, come back in a year and see if it worked. It looks like they're working. But once they start producing good pears that we'll eat, we'll be able to use them. So that's an example of what you can do if you have pear trees. And you'll notice that sometimes you'll have stuff like this that I leave. That's gonna be a mulberry bush. I haven't pruned it in a while, but I try to prune it back so it's in a nice little branch cluster. As you can see, I've pruned it back a few times. But yeah, these mulberries will come up everywhere, and you can guess what the vector is that spreads these. Some people find them invasive. So birds eat the berries, and then they leave their little dark, little messy poops everywhere. And then of course that breeds mulberry trees all over the place. An example of stuff that's for my wife, not necessarily for me. Oh look, they're flowering. This is your gladiolas.
No. Oh, no.
Wow.
Those are going to be so
These
pretty.
are going to be a big long thing of gladiolas. They're all, looks like a lot of them are flowering. Elderberry right here, elderberry right here. Does anyone know what this is?
Mint?
Poppy.
Poppy.
It's California poppy. I'll show you what the flowers look like if you want to see the poppy flowers. So we have nasturtiums, you'll notice. Some people like them because they attract predatory insects. Oh yeah, here's the poppies. So you'll see when the poppies get a little bit more mature, they'll flower.
Oh, those are cute ones.
Yeah. So that's what the poppies look like. So this is a little chaotic, but that's kind of the way I like it.
Chaos garden.
Yep, exactly. And you'll notice over here what this is.
Oh yeah, that's a blackberry or a raspberry.
Yeah, raspberry, good.
How do you
Yeah,
know
just
all
growing in
that?
my
I don't know how any of these are. I don't know how you guys do that.
More chaos over here, some strawberries, and then I have, I think that's a cherry. Yeah, this is a Bing cherry. That's another cherry that I can't remember what kind. That is another cherry. So I have 3 cherries. I think those 2 are the same and this one's different. So those are probably both.
So do you have to have multiple for them to?
I think so.
This is an apple tree.
Good.
2 stone fruit.
Good eye. This is an apple tree. I think this is, what does it say down there? It's a gala.
Oh, nice.
So that's a gala apple tree. This is a red
Oh
Fuji.
my gosh, those are going to be delicious.
And this one
I
is
love
a
Fuji.
mutsu, whatever that means. This one's struggling a little bit, probably with aphids. I can tell by the leaves. Got ants in here. I usually go with that's why my fingers are green. I was out here smashing aphids. And you can just kind of lightly run your finger over it without damaging the leaf. But I did the same thing here. So this is an apple tree. They used to look like that. Chopped it down. And it's also kind of making me nervous with the power lines. And then you'll see the grafts here. They've actually grown a lot. When I put them in there, they were only like the size of a pencil. And now they've like,
So you can have one tree with all different kinds of
yep, all of them.
Oh my gosh.
I have a friend that does have one of those. I was amazed. I'd never heard
And I'll
of it.
probably do that next year as well. I'll mix it up and I'll just randomly just graft in just Frankenstein. I'd love to have like
Have different color.
red fruits over here and green fruits over here. The flowers are, the branch has its own genetics. So whatever the genetics are of that tree, the entire branch and everything on the end of the branch will have the same genetics. But on this side, it'll have different genetics. Kind of like if you had like a uterine transplant, your baby wouldn't be genetically your baby. You know what I mean? Like the baby would have different genetics. You wouldn't know it was the mom's.
He's laughing at you.
They've had that drama.
I see your trees are really close together, and I wonder how close they can get together. Like,
So you have to consider what are the things that a tree needs.
yeah, space. It needs sunlight.
Yep,
It needs
sunlight.
space for the roots to spread out.
Good.
It needs-
So as long as you feel that you can keep that tree in such a way that it can provide that for itself. So I'm imagining the tree taking up about this much space and this one taking up about this much space. So as long as I prune it yearly, that should be fine. But you're right, if that's something that you like let go out of control, then they'd probably start encroaching on each other. But then you probably won't get very good fruit anyway. But yeah, some people would probably put them maybe a little bit further apart.
Mine are about, probably even a little bit closer, some of them, but we plan on keeping them very low because I don't want to have to use a ladder to
Yeah.
climb up and get them. I just want to stand and pick them. So
Yeah.
that's the thinking behind that.
Yeah, because something interesting about trees is the purpose of them producing roots is to compensate for water loss through transpiration. But if you're minimizing the amount of branches they have, then they're not going to have that thirst for water, so to speak. And so they're not going to drive as much roots down, and they're not going to drive out as many branches.
Okay.
And so typically pruning will just keep them small just because they don't need as many roots to support the top, and so the top doesn't need to be supported by roots. It's like,
Question number 2
Yeah.
was, do you have to worry about cross-pollination with a lot of different tree species and different kinds of fruits and stuff?
so with perennials, you're only worried about the seeds if you were to try to plant the seeds. So like if this apple tree gets pollinated by another apple tree, it's not going to change the fruit until the next generation. Like if I was to take the seeds from a fruit of a gala that was pollinated by Fuji, I might have some random mismatch of those genes. I dug the
nice
holes
of
and I
you
had
to
the
have
soil and she
something
was
to
supposed to put
learn
it in the
from.
hole like I said,
I like it.
but she didn't know to push the soil down around it just to make sure there was no air pockets around the roots, to make sure the roots were in intimate contact with soil like I was talking about. And so that's the reason why I believe the buds all dropped. And so I'm hoping it'll recover. I think it's just in shock right now. This is a crabapple with a Fuji, Gala, and a Mutsu all in one. So I just wanted to see what would happen. And they're all successful. So now I have to carefully prune this thing and not damage these, which might be interesting because that's going to be a huge cluster of
Yummy
fun.
apples, yeah.
Yeah. But this one's a pear. So this is a, I can't remember. It's the 3 I mentioned earlier. It's either Anjou, Bartlett, or...
You'll know when it puts fruit on, right? That's what I always say. Well, I'll know what it is when it puts fruit on.
Oh yeah, this is my mulch pile. You'll see weird stuff happening here. These are different types of fungus. Type of fungus coming up here called dog vomit fungus, I believe.
Is it a good fungus though?
It helps to break down the soil, and it doesn't. You'll notice kale and collard greens around the edges. Oh yeah, watch out! I got some stuff around here. So I got onions. You'll notice I have onions here. Along here, you'll see lots of collards and kale. It's all kale to me, so I'll just call it kale from now on.
You got some lettuce or something down there.
And then I think Matt gave me this, right? Lemon balm.
We traded a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he gave it to me though. And I have, look at these peas. Little purple peas. So this is my vineyard, or at least it's my soon-to-be vineyard. Right now it's just a bunch of depots in the ground.
It's grown so much since he came over last time.
There's a raspberry plant. Oh yeah, those are potatoes. So potatoes grown here. Everyone know what this is?
Kale.
Yep. More kale.
And there's more over there.
This is my little elderberry bed where I stuck a bunch of cuttings in here, and they're all just a big concentration. I gave half of these away the last time. But yeah, elderberries. Over here I have I chaos seeded carrots, so I was running around destroying carrot seeds everywhere. And so you can see here, I just pulled the back off. Let's try this one. Little tiny one.
Tiny baby.
Little baby carrot. This is a wild type grape. I'm trying to cultivate wild grapes because they thrive in Missouri, but nobody eats them. And so I'm trying to create a variety, or at least find a variety of riparian grapes that's good, in my opinion. Because if people could use some of the wild varieties, I speculate that some of the wild varieties might provide things that some of the cultivated varieties might not. But so this is a loganberry, thornless loganberry.
Is that like a...
They're like yellow. They look like yellow blackberries. I think it's a cross between raspberry and blackberry. Raspberry. Oh, here's my. This Concord has actual little berries on it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Concord. It's a Concord grape. Like Welch's grape juice. That's what Welch's grape juice.
Oh, I'm so excited. Honey, there's a bunch. Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Isn't
That's
that
a nice
exciting?
one. Yay.
That is so exciting.
These I got from my dad's neighbor. This is Chardonnay. I don't drink wine or anything, but I'm curious to see what the grapes taste like. These are 2 Chardonnay vines.
Isn't it interesting how different the vines are?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Those are just cuttings. Oh, watch out, there's a little baby grapevine right here. So everywhere around here is going to have stuff, so just watch your step. There's strawberries over here. Once the asparagus gets going, and it takes it a couple years, but this is kind of what it looks like when it's young. See a little asparagus right here?
Wow.
But they get thicker over time. Like by next year, they'll probably be double in size, and then by the 3rd year, they'll be in full production. These are vines that I just got. I'm hoping these survive. These were some of the ones that my wife didn't know to pack the soil down, so we'll see if they... I see buds though. I'm seeing buds here, so it looks like it's going to be doing fine, yeah.
Really?
That one has buds, and this one has 2 buds. There's a couple tomatoes on here too. I think there's one down here. Where'd it go? Yeah, it's lettuce. I had a packet of lettuce seeds, and I dug a little trench with a hoe, and I just sprinkled along the thing, and I just covered it. Spent like 2 seconds planting, and
So what kind of lettuce is that?
Look at that.
I think those are variety pack. And then behind you, everyone know what that is? Right behind Penny.
Mulberries.
Mulberry. What about this one? Everyone know what this is? It's called black currant.
Black currant. What are those? What do you do with those?
They're kind of like grapes. They taste very similar. There's just religious significance for. There's a religious talk that was given on currants about a currant bush, and so
Yeah.
you know the currant bush.
Yep.
So I bought.
Favorite thing ever.
I have a currant bush here and a currant bush there, and then there's a red currant bush that Matt gave me in the corner there. 2 black and then 1 red over in the corner. Oh, this is willow, by the way, so if you ever wanted to make your own aspirin. They dropped off some stumps, and willow is one of those things that goes nuts, and so the willow stumps actually grew their own roots, and they became willow trees. This is all little willow trees. So what I want to do is take out this annoying tree and have willow, since this is medicinal. You can use it for an analgesic.
What is that?
Yeah, aspirin's derived from salicylic acid, which is derived from willow. Well, they make it synthetically now, but once upon a time.
He's a chemist.
Oh, and this is actually a loofah. I don't know how it got right there, but there's a loofah.
It's because you're the chaos gardener. That's how it got right.
Yeah, I threw seeds everywhere, and they decided to pop up in random places. If it's the right space, I mean, if it wants to grow there. Oh, here's a little bench I made, but I put some oyster spawn plugs into it, so this should grow oyster mushrooms out of it.
Oh, nice.
Like, where's my? Oh, you see this hole right here? So you basically have these wooden dowels that are grown in oyster mycelium, and you drill a hole and you just hammer it in there, and then you cover it, and then
And where do you get those?
you can order them online. Sunflowers.
Hey, how could I not get? Oh, now
about
I
this?
see
Now
that.
you see
What
it.
about this? What's this?
I have some-
Joe, do you know what this is?
Is that a fig?
Yeah.
Good, that's a fig.
Close to the house.
It's actually better close to the house because in the winter, the heat that's dissipating out of the house will actually keep it from dying. Because it's actually a tropical plant.
So it
If
kind of
the-
dies back every year and has
Yeah.
to come back, so it won't get huge next to the house.
Anyone know what this is?
Get closer. Sweet potato.
Yep, sweet potato. Does anyone know what this is?
Passion fruit?
Good job, babe.
Oh, did I get it?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Passion fruit.
This is Passiflora incarnata, which is actually called a maypop.
It's because you said I bet no one will get this, so that's how I
Yeah.
knew. Because it's his favorite thing, but I don't think it's gonna do well here.
We'll see. Yeah,
Passion.
it's a Passiflora incarnata, so it's a maypop. Watch out for my naking cherries. So this is called bush cherry. I'm gonna grow a cherry hedge right here.
A bush cherry?
Yeah.
This is all gonna be a hedge, honey?
Yeah, this is gonna be a bush cherry hedge.
Cherry bush. Huh?
Little cherry bushes. Oh, and this is a mutation of elderberry. This is gonna have all black leaves. So by midsummer, these leaves are gonna get blacker and blacker. So it's a weird variety that turns black. Like it starts off green like this. So it's the same plant.
It's a what?
It's an elderberry.
This is your elderberry,
Same
right?
plant.
So I collect mutations. Like when I see an elderberry plant that's weird, because of a genetic whatever, then that makes me happy. So that's what that is. That's just a mutation. I have another one over here.
It's starting to smell like wet hair.
So I have a propagation station, so to speak, where I do some magic on plants. So I took a little chunk off the hydrangea plant and stuck it in here. So this is a little hydroponic system. What it does is it creates little waterfalls in each of these compartments. So instead of submerging it in water, instead it's in the air and then water pours over it. And so it allows more oxygen to get to the roots to prevent what's called a biofilm from forming, which basically happens like when you put cuttings in a glass of water and then they get all gross and then they die and you're like, why did it die? Why didn't it grow roots? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Usually it's because you grew an anaerobic biofilm on the and it somehow interfered with rooting. So this hopes to counter that. These are actually some cuttings that Mac just gave me. How long ago did you give me these? 2 days, 3 days? I don't know either.
3 days.
But anyway, I think that's been 2 or 3 days, but you'll see the little white roots on it. So it just makes stuff root pretty quick. This is actually rose. So if you ever wanted, like if you bought roses from the store that were pretty, you can just put them in one of these things and make your own. I have a fish in here that was going to go to Mac. I'm trying to, it's pregnant. It's called a mosquito fish. Where'd it go? Oh, it's brooding. It's sitting near the top. That usually means it's about to have babies. So you probably can't see it in there, but this type of fish can live in very poor conditions and even survive being frozen and then thawing in the winter or in the summer. They use it for mosquito control. You put it in standing water, it'll just basically just make lots of babies, and then you don't have to worry about mosquito larvae hatching and making mosquitoes that bite you in your yard. And then I have sweet potatoes in there to kind of root and provide food. You can see it right here. Yep, that's the mosquito fish. That's a female though. You can tell it's fat. It looks kind of like a guppy or a molly. If you're familiar with the fish.
Oh, there it is. Looks like I don't see it, but now I do.
And this is just, these are just pretty. They have like purple leaves, but they're super easy to root. I think I just did these yesterday, and then look how they already have roots on them. You just take cuttings, stick them in water, and they pop out little roots real quick. And then you can just stick them in your yard. They die in the winter here because they're tropical, but they make really good house plants. Yeah, inch plant. Cool. It grows really fast. That's probably why it's called inch plant, because I think it grows like an inch per day.
Whoa.
You get that in the ground established, and it'll take over your yard. And then in Missouri, it dies in the winter, so you don't have to worry about it taking over permanently. But you plant it early spring, and you can get some pretty good growth off it if you like that plant. Oh, this is a failed experiment. So these are actually in my thing. I usually don't show my mistakes, but it's good to show. I tried taking raspberry cuttings and growing them in my AeroGarden, and apparently green raspberry cuttings don't do very well in AeroGardens, and they just start shriveling up and dying. So
Compost pile.
I put them right there just to, as a memento of never to try.
That's the,
And then there's thyme right here as well. This is a thyme cutting. I put one in there and cut the tip off, and then it just bushed out all crazy. So I need to put that in the ground. Anyone have questions?
How much do those AeroGardens cost?
I get them on sale. They pop down to $79 each. They're normally like $150 or something. But you can get them for $79.
Where at?
I get them right from the website because it's cheaper.
Put the plants in your windowsill and water.
Yeah, just put them in a cup, and you just have to make sure you change the water every other day. This is because I forget to change the water, and so this just cycles the water for me. So if you want to save $100, just use Dixie cups. My wife would strangle me if I put Dixie cups in the window. I used to do it all the time. So this is a prettier version of a Dixie cup, so to speak. I'm pretty sure it's just at youtube.com/@thechaosgardener. But yeah, I have lots of little tutorial videos on there. A lot of the stuff that I've talked about in here, I have on other videos.